The sun was slipping low behind the Arizona mesas, casting long orange shadows over the dusty trading post where Emma Carter spent her days sweeping floors and keeping out of trouble. Her uncle, Cyrus Whitlock, owned the place, a squat building with creaking wooden walls, a rusted sign reading Whitlock Trading Co., and a reputation for selling bullets faster than bread. Emma had lived here since her parents died of fever 3 winters ago. She was shy, small-voiced, and used to doing whatever Cyrus barked at her to do. He believed that a woman's job was to scrub, stay silent, and never question a man's orders. She tried her best to disappear into the background, because being noticed usually meant trouble. Most days, the trading post saw ranchers, soldiers, and fortune seekers passing through, hard men full of fear and suspicion. Lately things had worsened. Rumors said Apaches were near, hunting for their stolen land, watching from every ridge. Soldiers rode by weekly, itching for a fight. A single feather in the dirt could send them into panic. Emma never believed the stories that painted Apache men as demons. Her mother had once told her, "People fear what they refuse to understand." But Cyrus would cuff her for saying such softness. In his mind, an Apache was an enemy before he ever spoke a word. That evening, a desert storm gathered, fast wind whipping dust into the sky until the whole world turned copper brown. Cyrus slammed the shutters, shouting orders at Emma and the 2 hired hands. Rain began to fall in fat, heavy drops that rattled the tin roof like gunfire. As Emma carried sacks of flour down to the cellar, lightning split the sky and she saw movement outside. Something collapsed near the wagon wheel. Someone, her breath caught. A man lay face down in the mud, clothes torn and stained with blood. Even in the storm's fury, she recognized the beaded leather vest, the long black hair tied in a warrior's knot. An Apache. A dozen warnings screamed in her mind. Leave him. He's dangerous. Tell Cyrus. Run. But louder still came the small voice her mother gave her. Help. She hesitated only a heartbeat before, dropping the sack and rushing outside. The wind nearly knocked her down as she reached him. He was heavy, his muscles hard as iron under his skin. It took everything she had to drag him toward the cellar doors. Mud soaked her skirt, rain stung her face, and fear pounded in her chest. What in God's name are you doing? One of the hired hands shouted through the storm. Emma's pulse surged. If they saw the warrior clearly, he'd be dead before morning. She yanked the cellar door open just enough to slip inside, pulling him after her. The door thudded shut above them, drowning out the storm's howl. For a moment, darkness swallowed them both. Then her eyes adjusted. His breathing was shallow but strong. A deep gash cut across his ribs. An arrow had been snapped off near his shoulder. Emma's hand shook as she fetched a lantern and lit it. The warm light fell over his face and she froze. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't an enemy. He was a man, young, powerful, striking. His cheekbones were high, his jaw set with pride, even unconscious. Fear should have made her keep her distance. Instead, something like courage pushed her closer. She whispered, though he couldn't hear, "I'm going to help you." Voices sounded above, Cyrus ordering the men to search the yard. Soldier hooves thundered past on the road. If anyone found the Apache down here, Emma didn't want to think about what Cyrus would do to them both. She worked quickly, tearing a strip from her own petticoat to clean his wound. Blood stained the fabric crimson. His skin was hot with fever. As she pressed the cloth gently to his side, his eyes flicked open, dark, sharp, and burning like campfire embers. He grabbed her wrist with lightning reflexes. Emma gasped, heart leaping into her throat. The warrior's voice was rough as gravel, heavy with pain and distrust. "You. Why help?" Emma swallowed hard but didn't pull away. "Because you're hurt," she whispered. "Because you're human." Storm thunder rolled above them, shaking the earth itself. But in that cellar, a different storm had begun, one that would change both their lives forever. Emma Carter, the quiet maid no one noticed, had just chosen bravery over fear, and nothing would ever be the same again. Emma held her breath, frozen beneath the Apache warrior's intense stare. His fingers remained tight around her wrist, not enough to hurt her, but enough to say he was not defenseless. The lantern flame flickered between them, casting shadows that danced across his sharp jaw and proud brow. "I'm not your enemy," she said, her voice trembling but steady enough to mean the truth. For a long moment he didn't move. His chest rose and fell in rapid, pained breaths. Finally, he released her wrist and slumped back, too weak to hold the suspicion that fueled him. Emma pressed her palm over her racing heart. She had never been this close to any man, let alone one with such fierce presence. Everything about him, his strength, his silence, the fire in his eyes, felt dangerous. Yet, strangely, she felt safer than she ever had with the men upstairs drinking whiskey and bragging about who they'd shot. Emma gently pushed strands of wet black hair away from the warrior's face so she could clean the wound properly. He watched her every movement like a hawk, hence the name she would soon learn was his. She spoke softly as she worked, hoping her voice might settle the storm inside him. "My name is Emma," she murmured, tearing another strip from her petticoat to bind the bleeding. "Emma Carter." He blinked slowly. Then, with a deep breath, he spoke two words in careful English: "Tall Hawk." The name suited him perfectly, strong, fierce, watchful. Emma's cheeks flushed with an emotion. She did not understand something far deeper than gratitude that he was no longer gripping her wrist. She dipped a cloth into the water bucket and wrung it out, her hands brushing his warm skin again. He flinched, not from pain, but from the shock of gentleness. Emma realized then, this warrior wasn't used to being treated with kindness. "You must rest," she whispered. "Men are searching for you, soldiers. If they find you—" Her throat tightened. She had seen soldiers drag wounded Apache men through dirt to be hanged by morning. She had heard them laugh about it. Tall Hawk's eyes narrowed. "My brother?" His voice cracked. The English strained. Emma shook her head sadly. "You were alone when I found you." Grief flashed in his eyes, a brief, burning knife of pain that wounded Emma too. She placed her hand on his shoulder without thinking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. His muscles tensed beneath her fingers, then slowly relaxed. The warrior's gaze softened for a heartbeat, but footsteps clattered. Above them, voices. Her uncle's angry bark. "Check the cellar." That storm could have dragged in a wolf or worse. Emma's breath caught. If Cyrus saw Tall Hawk, he'd kill him on sight. Her instinct screamed at her to hide him, to protect him, though she didn't fully know why. She only knew that letting fear rule the world had caused far more suffering than a wounded warrior ever could. "Please," she begged in a whisper, leaning close enough to feel his breath brush her cheek. "Don't make a sound." Tall Hawk's dark eyes locked onto hers. For the first time, trust flickered there. A silent promise. Emma snatched the bloodied cloth and the lantern and scurried to a corner behind barrels of grain. She tossed a thick tarp over Tall Hawk just as the cellar door creaked open. Cyrus stomped halfway down the stairs, lantern swinging. His eyes scanned the storage room suspiciously. Emma stood as still as stone, hands clasped behind her back so he couldn't see they were shaking. "Did you hear something down here?" Cyrus demanded. "Just the storm," Emma replied, forcing a shy, innocent look, one she had perfected to avoid trouble. He sniffed the air like a wolf. "If an Apache sneaks in, don't you dare hide him. They ain't human. They're animals." Emma's jaw tightened, fury burning in her chest, something she'd never felt so strongly before Tall Hawk arrived. Cyrus spat, turned, and slammed the door behind him. Silence swallowed the cellar again. Emma released a shaky breath, nearly collapsing against the nearest barrel. When she turned back, Tall Hawk had lifted the tarp just enough to look at her. "You." "Brave," he whispered. Her heart fluttered wildly. No one had ever called her that. Not once. Not in her whole life. Emma knelt beside him, willing her shaking hands to calm. "I only did what was right." Tall Hawk's lips curved, not a smile exactly, but something close. "You have. Strong heart." She felt heat rise to her cheeks. The storm outside thundered once more, but the storm inside Emma was louder now. She didn't just want to save this warrior's life. She wanted him to stay alive long enough for her to understand why his presence made her entire world feel new. The desert night outside the trading post was unforgiving. Wind rattled the shutters, carrying with it the icy bite of rain and sand. Down in the cellar, Emma and Tall Hawk huddled together on a stack of straw and old blankets. The storm had trapped them in close quarters, and for the first time, Emma truly noticed how large and powerful he was. Even lying down, his presence filled the room like a living force. She could hear his shallow, uneven breaths. The wound in his ribs ached with every movement, and she shivered as she tore another strip of cloth to bind it more securely. The lantern's flame flickered, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to reach for them. Tall Hawk's dark eyes studied her the entire time. Emma tried to ignore the intensity, telling herself it was the adrenaline, the fear, the danger, but her heart hammered faster with every glance he shot her way. Finally, he murmured, his voice low and almost a growl, "Stay close tonight." "For warmth." Emma froze, the words sinking into her like sparks into dry tinder. Her cheeks burned, and a shiver ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. She glanced down at the straw beneath them and then back into his fierce, burning eyes. It wasn't just a request for physical warmth. There was trust in it, vulnerability, something she had never imagined receiving from a man like him. The thought terrified her, and yet, for reasons she couldn't fully explain, she didn't pull away. Her hand shook as she reached for the blanket. Tentatively, she scooted closer, trying not to make it obvious that her body was trembling not just from the cold, but from the nearness of this proud, stoic warrior. His arm shifted slightly, brushing against her own. Emma's breath caught. He didn't recoil. He didn't move away. The two of them lay side by side on the straw. The warmth between them was immediate and electric. Emma felt the slow rise and fall of his chest, the heat radiating from his body. For the first time in her life, she felt truly safe yet exposed in a way that made her heart flutter uncontrollably. Tall Hawk turned his head toward her, eyes softening in the lantern light. "You? Brave? You risk life," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "Not many. Help enemy." Emma's throat tightened. "You're not my enemy," she whispered. "You're just hurt." She glanced at the gash along his ribs, seeing the sharp line of red against his dark skin. "And no one should suffer alone." He nodded slowly, a muscle ticking in his jaw, his eyes lingering on her face. "You, gentle." The words were simple, broken English, but Emma felt their weight. In the cold, the fear, the chaos of their worlds, this man recognized her as a human being, a woman with courage, a person who mattered. For hours they lay there in silence, listening to the storm lash against the wooden walls above. Every crack of thunder, every gust of wind made them instinctively huddle closer. Emma found her fingers brushing his hand, then pulling away. Then again, almost by accident, their knees touched. Each contact sent warmth flooding through her, chasing away the fear she had carried all her life. Tall Hawk, sensing her hesitation, spoke again. "No, afraid. You safe." His hand hovered near hers, offering reassurance without words. Emma's chest tightened. She realized she wanted him to stay close, not just tonight, but always. She swallowed hard and whispered, I'll stay. The admission was small, barely audible over the storm, yet it changed everything. Tall Hawk shifted slightly, letting her move closer, wrapping an arm gently around her shoulder. The heat from his body seeped into hers, chasing away the cold. In that moment, she understood something profound. Trust could be born in the most dangerous, unexpected places. Courage wasn't just facing danger, it was letting someone in. Even when the world outside told her not to, the hours passed slowly. Every glance, every brush of skin, every soft breath built a quiet intimacy between them. Emma realized that she had never felt anything like this before, not fear, not excitement, but a complicated blend of both that made her pulse race and her heart ache. Tall Hawk, for his part, felt a growing protectiveness toward the small, brave woman beside him. By the time the storm subsided, a fragile bond had formed, one built on trust, courage, and the silent understanding that they were no longer alone in a world that had tried to teach them fear. That night, as the first rays of dawn pierced the cellar through cracks in the wood, Emma lay with her head near his chest. For the first time, she felt both warmth and safety. Tall Hawk's steady heartbeat beneath her ear told her that the cold, the danger, and the prejudice of the world outside could not touch them here. And in the quiet aftermath of the storm, Emma realized something she had never allowed herself to feel before. She didn't just want to stay close tonight. She wanted to stay close always. The first light of dawn seeped through the cracks in the trading post walls, casting thin beams across the cellar floor. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the desert smelling of wet earth and sagebrush. For a brief moment, it felt peaceful. Emma breathed deeply, savoring the quiet, her head still resting near Tall Hawk's chest, but the peace didn't last long. Footsteps pounded on the wooden porch above them, hard and deliberate. Emma froze. Her heart thudded like a drum in her chest. The soldiers had returned. They were searching for the wounded Apache they had heard about. "Check the cellar. He has to be hiding somewhere," barked a soldier's voice, harsh and unforgiving. Emma's mind raced. She could see the terror in Tall Hawk's dark eyes, and she knew what would happen if the men found him. He would be dragged outside, beaten, or worse. Her hands shook as she grabbed a bucket of water and set it aside. Trying to look calm, Cyrus's voice followed, booming from above. "Emma, if you're hiding anything down there, I swear I'll—" He paused, sniffing the air. "I smell him. An Apache." Emma's stomach dropped. She had a choice to make: turn Tall Hawk in, as her uncle expected, or protect him and risk her life. Every instinct told her to obey Cyrus. Every lesson from a lifetime of fear whispered, "Do not defy men." But she had learned something the night before. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. Courage was doing what was right, even when it terrified you. She took a shaky step forward, keeping her eyes down, and called out in her softest, most timid voice, "Nothing here. Uncle Cyrus, just the storm." Cyrus barked, stepping closer. "Don't lie to me, girl. I smell an Apache. If you've let him in—" Emma swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the edge of a barrel. "He's gone," she said, her voice trembling, hoping her small lie would be enough to protect him. Cyrus's gaze swept the room. For a moment, it seemed he might see through her. His eyes narrowed, suspicious and dangerous. "I'll check myself," he growled, stepping down the last stair. Emma held her breath as he passed within inches of the tarp hiding Tall Hawk. The warrior's chest rose and fell beneath it, steady but tense. His hand brushed against the burlap edge, and Emma squeezed her eyes shut. Then Cyrus did something unexpected. He sniffed the air one last time, shook his head, and muttered, "This storm's got me seeing things. Before stomping back upstairs, Emma exhaled a long, shaky breath, her knees weakening. She looked at Tall Hawk, who slowly emerged from under the tarp. His eyes were a mixture of anger and admiration, but mostly relief. "You." "Brave," he whispered, his voice low. "Many." "Hide. You." "Fight fear." Emma flushed. "I only did what I had to." "You deserve to live. That's all." Her words seemed to strike a chord in him. Tall Hawk's lips curved, barely a smile, but enough to warm her heart in the cold morning light. For the first time, they were equals, not warrior and frightened girl, but two humans who had chosen trust and kindness over fear and hatred. But their relief was short-lived. A shout rang from outside. The soldiers had spotted something in the yard. Emma realized with a jolt that they would soon search every corner, including the cellar. "Quick," she whispered. "We must move." Together, they climbed the narrow back stairs, avoiding the main trading floor. The storm had left the yard muddy, slowing the soldiers' progress. They slipped into the surrounding desert, wet clothes clinging to their bodies, hearts racing. Tall Hawk's strong hand gripped hers, guiding her over rocks and through brush. For the first time, she felt herself not as a timid girl, but as a partner, someone who could face danger head-on. They paused at a small ravine, hiding behind a boulder. Tall Hawk pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. Emma's breath came in short gasps, but she did not panic. She had learned something crucial. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Tall Hawk looked at her, his dark eyes fierce and unwavering. "You?" "Stay close," he said, voice gentle now, no longer a command, but a promise. Emma nodded, squeezing his hand in return. "I will," she said, and in that moment, beneath the wide Arizona sky, amidst the echoes of soldiers' shouts and the wet desert air, Emma Carter realized something profound. Her world was changing. She was no longer the quiet, invisible Maid. She was a brave young woman, willing to risk everything for what was right, and in doing so, she had begun to forge a bond that could survive even the fiercest storms. Together, they vanished into the desert, two souls bound by trust, courage, and the promise of a future neither had dared to imagine. The desert stretched endlessly before them, a sea of red rock, sagebrush, and golden light. For hours, Emma and Tall Hawk moved through narrow canyons and over ridges, careful to avoid the patrols of soldiers still searching the trading post. Her legs ached from running and climbing, but adrenaline and fear kept her moving. Tall Hawk led the way with sure, silent steps. Emma followed close, learning to trust his instincts even when he moved in complete silence. Every so often, he would glance back at her with a faint smile, as if to say, "You're safe as long as I'm here." By midday, they reached a small, hidden valley. Smoke curled from a fire in the distance, and Emma realized they had come to Tall Hawk's homeland. She had never seen a place so beautiful. The earth was red and rich, dotted with wildflowers, and the river sparkled in the sunlight. Tall Hawk gestured for her to stay behind a cluster of rocks. "Wait," he whispered. "People see first. No speak yet." Emma nodded, heart hammering with anticipation and fear. She had never been among Apaches, never seen their homes, never understood their ways. Now she was about to enter a world both foreign and fascinating. Tall Hawk called to a few figures in the distance. Within moments, his younger brother appeared, cautious but curious. His eyes widened when he saw Emma. Tall Hawk spoke rapidly in their language, explaining her role in saving him. Emma stepped forward slowly, offering a soft nod. She tried to mimic the respectful gestures she had observed during the brief moment she had watched them from a distance. The brothers' eyes softened. Then other members of the tribe arrived. At first, they were suspicious, keeping their distance. Watching her every movement, Emma could feel their eyes on her, measuring her intentions. She took a deep breath. "This is the test of courage," she told herself. "I helped Tall Hawk," she said slowly, "because it was right. He needed me, no more." Tall Hawk stepped beside her. "She brave, she honest," he said, translating for her. The tribe seemed to exchange glances, whispers spreading like a gentle wind. Slowly, suspicion softened into curiosity, then respect. Over the next few days, Emma learned the rhythms of their life. She learned how to gather water from hidden springs, how to identify plants for food and medicine, and even basic survival skills like riding horses and tracking game. Tall Hawk taught her the Apache's words, gestures, and customs, patiently guiding her, always protective yet encouraging. At night, they would sit by the fire, speaking in broken English and gestures, sharing stories of their lives. Emma told them of the trading post, her lonely upbringing, and her dreams of seeing the world beyond the mesas. Tall Hawk spoke of his people, their struggles, and the promise he felt to protect his brother and his tribe. One evening, after a long day, Tall Hawk presented her with a small, handmade necklace carved from river stones and leather. "For courage," he said simply, fastening it around her neck. Emma's chest warmed. It was more than jewelry. It was recognition, trust, and something deeper. She looked into his eyes, realizing that the bond between them was growing stronger each day. "You saved life," he said softly. "I promise, always protect you." Emma smiled, a real, unguarded smile. "And I'll stay by your side," she whispered. It was in these quiet moments that she began to understand the deeper lessons of her journey. Trust, bravery, and compassion were not just words. They were actions that could cross the boundaries of culture, fear, and prejudice. She saw that. Even in the harsh desert, amidst fear and violence, kindness and courage could create something enduring. The tribe, once wary, accepted her as one of their own. Children ran to her side, and even elders nodded with approval. Emma felt a profound sense of belonging she had never known at the trading post. Tall Hawk's brother smiled at her, offering friendship, while Tall Hawk himself remained a steady presence, a protector, a teacher, and now a companion. As the sun set over the valley, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Emma stood beside Tall Hawk on a small bluff overlooking the river. The wind teased her hair, carrying the scents of wild sage and river water. "Your world." "And my world," Tall Hawk murmured, voice low, almost reverent. "Together, better." Emma rested her hand on his arm. "Yes, together," she said, and in that moment, beneath the vast desert sky, a promise was made, not of ownership, not of possession, but of trust, courage, and love. Emma had crossed a boundary few could imagine, discovering a life filled with safety, respect, and the kind of bond that could endure anything. The desert night stretched on, filled with firelight, laughter, and the quiet rhythm of two hearts learning to beat together. And Emma Carter, the shy frontier maid who had hidden in corners all her life, realized that she had finally found a home not just in a place, but in a person. Months had passed since Emma Carter first discovered the wounded Apache in the storm-lashed trading post cellar. The desert had healed Tall Hawk's wounds, and the bond between them had grown stronger with every shared lesson, every quiet conversation, and every moment of courage. Emma was no longer the shy, timid maid who hid in corners. She had become confident, resilient, and loved in a way she had never thought possible. Tall Hawk had introduced her to his people, and the tribe had embraced her, not as an outsider, but as a brave and kind-hearted member of their community. She had learned to ride, to hunt, and to speak their language. But perhaps more importantly, she had learned about trust, understanding, and the power of compassion across cultures. one morning as the sun rose over the mesas, painting the desert. In soft gold, Emma and Tall Hawk set out together toward the trading post. They had received word that Cyrus was still struggling to run the business alone, and although he had never truly welcomed Emma's independence, she felt ready to return not as a scared girl, but as a partner in her own life. The journey back was quiet but full of purpose. Tall Hawk walked beside Emma, their hands occasionally brushing, a small spark of electricity running through her every time. She felt the weight of what they had accomplished together. Bravery, survival, and love that transcended fear. When they arrived, the trading post looked exactly as she remembered: dusty, cluttered, and tense with the presence of soldiers, but Emma's confidence had changed her perspective. She strode in, head held high, and met her uncle's startled gaze. "Emma?" Cyrus barked. "You're back? And with him?" His eyes darted to Tall Hawk. Lingering with suspicion and uncertainty, Emma took a deep breath. "Yes, Uncle Cyrus. This is Tall Hawk. He's my friend. He's brave, honest, and he saved my life. I've come back not to hide, but to show you that understanding and trust can go further than fear ever could." Cyrus opened his mouth, perhaps to argue, but the stern presence of Tall Hawk, calm and composed, held him in check. The other townsfolk, who had gathered to witness her return, whispered among themselves, curious about this unexpected reunion. Tall Hawk stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "We, friends, we help each other. No fight. No war. Just peace." For the first time, Cyrus saw the truth in their eyes, the courage, respect, and honesty that could bridge worlds. Slowly he nodded, grudging but sincere. "Well, maybe I misjudged you, boy," he said. Over the following weeks, a new rhythm settled over the trading post. Tall Hawk's tribe began trading with Cyrus openly, exchanging food, horses, and knowledge of the land. Soldiers learned that cooperation could prevent bloodshed, and Emma became a respected figure in both communities, bridging the divide between two worlds that had once seemed irreconcilable. Tall Hawk and Emma continued to grow closer. Nights by the desert fire were filled with laughter, shared stories, and quiet moments of tenderness. Their bond had transformed from survival into a profound companionship, built on trust, bravery, and mutual respect. Emma learned the Apache ways, and Tall Hawk began to understand the hardships of life in the trading post. Together, they created a bridge between two cultures, showing that compassion could overcome fear. One evening, under the vast expanse of stars, Emma whispered softly to Tall Hawk, "I'm not afraid anymore. I don't have to hide. I can stay close always." Tall Hawk's hand found hers, warm and steady. "And I always protect you," he said, his voice low but firm. They stood together, the desert wind playing with their hair, hearts aligned in unspoken promise. It was a union not just of hearts but of worlds, a testament to courage, understanding, and love that could endure anything. Emma realized then that the greatest lesson she had learned was not about survival, nor even bravery. It was about the power of connection. By choosing compassion over fear, she had discovered a life far richer and fuller than she had ever imagined. And by staying close through danger, uncertainty, and cultural divides, she had found not only love but a home. The trading post thrived as a center of trust and commerce. The Apache tribe and the townsfolk exchanged not only goods but stories, wisdom, and friendship. Emma and Tall Hawk became symbols of the possibility that two worlds, so often set against each other, could coexist in harmony when courage and respect guided the way. As the sun set over the mesas, casting golden light over the desert, Emma rested her head against Tall Hawk's chest. Together they watched the horizon, hearts steady, hands intertwined, and lives forever changed. The shy frontier maid who had once hidden in fear had grown into a woman of courage, compassion, and love, and she knew that as long as she stayed close to Tallhawk, Knopf,